Okay, we're out at Lake George currently. I'd like to get across the gap before that cloud, but I'm not sure that I'm going to. A bit of summary of the last 3 weeks of my life. Went on an expedition organised by Justin Shaw from Knowsley Park and Paramania, Australia, and also Andrew Polidano from Polyglide up in Byron Bay. The expedition, we had 6 pilots and 2 cars, and one of the pilots was also a driver, so 2 drivers. Our goal was a pretty ambitious one. 2 weeks we set aside to fly from Lake Eyre in South Australia, which is the lowest point in Australia, minus 49 feet above sea level, to the highest point in Australia, which is Mt Kosciuszko at 7,200 feet or thereabouts. The wind is definitely decreasing, so I'll just focus on flying for a little while. And it's also going off to the south, which means that it's a little bit more technical. So I'm only at 2,530 feet, which is getting pretty low for Lake George. There is a patch of sunlight coming towards me, so that might generate a little bit of lift. But I doubt it. Oh, a little bit rougher there, so something is changing in the air mass. Not quite sure what. Okay, getting up 2,640 feet, so I can continue the story. As I said, we had 2 weeks. We put aside 2 weeks. First 4 or 5 days, we were punching south from Lake Eyre to the west of the Flinders Ranges. Unfortunately, we're also punching headwinds, so our progress wasn't all that great. Also, the winds were quite reasonably strong, so we could not fly into the Flinders at all. Couple of the boys, Peter Forbes and Justin, flew towards the Flinders, but they did not fly into that at all. A range like the Flinders is actually quite large compared to the flatland around it, so that generates quite significant local winds, and without local knowledge, it's not something that we would have wanted, certainly not something that I would have wanted to put myself in for. Got to Hawker, did some driving from Hawker towards Menindee Lakes. We launched at Menindee Lakes. It would have been nice to fly around Broken Hill and Menindee Lakes, but we didn't have that option. Flew from Menindee Lakes to south of Ivanhoe, which was not a flight I went on. I'd actually developed a problem with my carburetor, so I drove that section. But 3 of the boys did that flight. That was probably the best flight. They had a tailwind and got up to 102 kilometres an hour over the ground, so that's nice speed. We then landed south of Ivanhoe and the decision was made to drive because there was quite a large bank of rain following us. So we drove to Cancoban. We dropped in at Hoffy's place, Jeff Hoffman, and he actually lent me a part for my carburetor, so I'm very thankful of that. And that's a fantastic thing about the flying community. We all will help each other, so that's good. Got to Cancoban on Thursday night, which meant that we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday for our attempts to get to the top of Kosciuszko. I think we flew every day. The initial were just feeling it out, flying up towards GI Flats. The route from Cancoban to Kosci, Cancoban is about 950 feet, I think, above sea level, which is pretty low. The next available landing is GI Flats, I think about 1,300 feet. To get to GI Flats, you cross a range where we need probably 5,500 feet to safely cross that. Then from GI Flats, you need to climb horizontal distance to Kosci is perhaps 14 kilometres, but there's absolutely no landings in that period. So we needed to be over Kosci by probably 2,500 feet to safely fly back to GI Flats. My motor developed a problem flying towards GI Flats, and I turned back and landed at Cancoban, well, at the headwater of Cancoban, and Drew from Snowy Hydro, he and his girls retrieved me from their paddock, or not their paddock, the next door neighbour's paddock, and drove me back to GI Cancoban airstrip. The other boys, Justin Shaw, Peter Forbes and Andrew Polidano, they got above GI Flats, climbed there, but were unable to climb past 7,200 feet for a variety of reasons. The cold, also engines lost power. That's quite a significant climb. So they got to the height of Kosci, so they declared it a success, landed at GI Flats, and Chris Farnay, who was one of the drivers, retrieved them and drove them back to Cancoban. We then packed up, and on Sunday about lunchtime, and left Cancoban. Cancoban is a fantastic little airstrip. It's owned by Snowy Hydro, and we've made some fantastic contacts there and definitely intend to go back. I found the trip very challenging, both physically, emotionally, and also skills-wise. During the trip, I've worked out that my launch technique depends on having a large runway or a large area to take off in. I'm fairly comfortable taxiing, and what I will tend to do is accelerate gradually and then take off. The other guys were much better at short field takeoffs, where they apply power much earlier in the cycle, and I need to perfect that. So that's one of my takeaways. Another takeaway is that my Polini 190 engine is a fantastic high-performance engine, but I need to monitor the temperatures 100% of the time, especially if I'm on any sort of climb. So those are two of the takeaways. I ended up losing probably 4.5 kilos over a 4-week period. So I'm quite pleased with that. The more weight I lose, obviously the better. The more options I have for motors, that will be powerful enough for me. I learnt also that I need to find a better way of securing my radios and my instruments so I can access them in flight, and I'm working on that. So all up, fantastic trip. I am very grateful that I was invited along on that trip, and the next trip I gather they're organising is along the Murray River, which is the 3rd longest navigable river in the world, which is something I wasn't aware of. So hopefully I will get to go on that trip. You should be able to see ahead of me there. There is a little bit of sun on the lake. Hopefully that will generate a little bit extra lift, and I can use that to get me across the gap. We will go and explore that. I don't seem to be getting anywhere near the lift I would have expected, but that's because the wind is off to the south a huge amount. I'm only just penetrating into the wind. Unless there's a dramatic change, there's no way I'm going to be able to get across to the other side of the Geary's Gap. I will try right over here at the end. There's quite often a little point of lift over here. But that doesn't appear to be the case today. Yeah, Goran has landed. I'm the only person in the sky at present, so that takes away a little bit of the workload. There's a bubble of lift there, so we'll try to go back and get that. And there it is. I don't know if you can hear my Vario, but not very large. Downwind we're doing 34 kilometres an hour, and upwind I'm doing 1. You'll see down there, there's a paraglider doing some ground handling, and also Goran. Aviation is very much about what you do on the ground, preparing everything. The more you can prepare on the ground, the better. The easier the flight, the safer the flight. Yeah, it's definitely time to land. You can see the sun out there. Makes it actually quite hard. My strategy here for the landing is to make sure that my legs are nice and flexible. So you'll notice that I'm waving my legs around in the air at present, just to make sure that they're very, my legs are working properly. I will then do a couple of passes along the ridge just to ascertain the wind direction and speed, that there's not going to be anything strange there. I will then fly out over the trees, well above the trees in the rest area, and then do a straight-in approach and land a little bit further out from the rest area than Goran, because roughly where Peter is, you'll see there's Goran down there walking back to his car. The reason for landing well away from the rest area in the trees is that when the wind is off to the south, there is quite often rolling turbulence that goes along the base of the escarpment, and we do not want that. This will be my last pass, and while I'm not on VHF radio yet, it's always a good idea to do practice calls. So I'm not going to be worried if I overshoot. Looking at the windsock. Lake George traffic, microlight 3992, turning final for landing at runway 12, Lake George. Okay, and we're just waddling back. Okay, so that was a nice little flight out at Lake George. Well, all flights are good.